Hey guys, sorry. I had it muted. That's okay. Speaking of no volume, sorry about that. I'm a bit annoyed with GME right now. I don't really I don't know. It's like I wish I could find the right words to describe it. It's a very strange setup to me. I feel like you guys can hear me, right? And what's going on today? Thanks. Yeah, it's like really low everything today. Yeah, I don't get it. All right. You can just take a minute. Let's step back on GME quite a bit. Yeah, everything's kind of in the same spot. Nothing really moved. MPW pushed up a bit more. I mean, by like a few cents. IWM's pretty much in the same spot. Just chopping here. I would argue that there's a decent likelihood that we've hit again like that kind of channel area. It seems like this is a fairly common region for us to kind of find or lose support for IWM right now. So in terms of this, we'll call it a channel. Maybe I need to draw it differently, but I like the way it's drawn right now, so I'm gonna just leave it. I don't really know what to say about IWM that hasn't already been said. I'm just kind of waiting on it to make a decision about up or down again. I'm not particularly bullish at this point because of how much we've run, but it's cooled off quite a bit on lower time frames every time. I'm really concerned mostly about GME right now. I feel like this chart is like broken or something. So I just don't get it. I'm trying my best to understand. I just think that it just seems dead. Like the moves are just not happening. There's nothing here that says we should be stalled out like we are. We just are. This is the main creek jump to me, and I'm like, that should have been it. There was a double bottom here, and then we just chopped. We're just pinned beneath this 2620 area. You know, we've been stuck here. And now we're approaching, again, like kind of the outermost creek here. We're basically going to just walk up to it. I mean, it's super strange to me to have as much volatility as we have had and then just suddenly like stop. This is very odd price movement. I wonder. Yeah, I just don't have a. I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm trying my best to figure out what's going on with GME, but I just can't quite put my finger on it. This is a very odd walkout here. There's no particularly high volume. There's no particularly high selling or buying. It's just sort of slow churning movement. I want to say it's like those ascending accumulations we see, but those are usually pretty violent. Like they're usually very volatile, you know? Like these ascending ones that we see are typically a lot more, I mean, I guess it still kind of looks like that. It's like this, but then you usually get that last pullback and then you just go. Maybe we're just waiting for that go, and that's why it feels like nothing's happening. It's just odd. There were predictions that I made about things like being overbought that are starting to happen, and it's not gone anywhere. Like, we haven't moved. Like, we're almost to this wall right here. We're almost to this wall. Yeah, I mean, it should go up to about 27, and then if it breaks, you'll have another push up to like possibly like 29 and then 31. So there's a few targets here. One is around 27. The next one, and I would expect it to kind of chill. If it can advance, there should be another one right here at 29. So basically they're level like 2. So 27, 29, 31, adding $2 each. But we're just not making those steps. I don't know. I think it's one or the other. You have the possibility here of a really strong advancement, but it's the only thing I can say at this point is it must be dependent on passing a certain level that I'm just not getting. Like, I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's the level we're at right now, because that is kind of a halfway point. And you can see back here anyways, this is where we hit a resistance around that 27 top. And then we gapped up above it and we found support over it. So it's sort of the midpoint also in this area. So if I would look at this as a range, I would think that that's like halfway up the range from this initial breakout, or this initial auto reaction. Everything else feels super low. It's a very strange setup, in my opinion. One of the weirder ones we've had. I think my bigger concern isn't if we will go up. I think it's probable that we're going to see a move to 31. I don't think we're going to stop here, although there is a possibility that we need to come down first and then go up. That's sort of like one option, is like we could drop first and then advance, and that's not a big deal. Like if we drop down to even to like below here and get that gap fill, then we could just rock it. And if we rock it first and we just go, we may come back down after, you know. I don't believe that the market has to have perfect symmetry, but in this case, the symmetry should be kind of over, you know. We're sort of at the end of it. And it would imply to me anyways that if you're going to hit a peak, that it would be like now. You see this? This is not a great place to like kind of peak though. It's just another case of like we getting left behind here, you know what I mean? Like we're just not making the advancements. Should have been like right there. Miho. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always a possibility that I'm just like way off with this in terms of where those supports are, and it's just really, really low lying. What is that, 14 degrees? Trying to be optimistic and see the possibility of big swings, but every time we get these setups, we're just kind of falling flat. It's like it's falling on deaf ears or something, like nobody really wants to move. It's not that we can't move, there's just no volume. There's no smart money volume here to push up. Big institutional volume to push up, you know? We're just kind of stuck. It's not really where I want to be on GME. I like GME as a big mover, I do, and I think that part of this is a bit odd because of the timing being like what it is. I'm okay with the timing being a little off, but being like this majorly off is it's kind of a big deal. So honestly, we're channel bound is what it is. We just have yet to break out of this channel going up. Yeah. So we're just stuck. You know, and I like to think that these trajectories do matter, but it's possible to get them like slightly off, you know. The bigger thing that bothers me about that is there's not a way to get the outermost one like off. So that's the major creek body. Unless I just drew it wrong. Maybe I'll just redo it. Ooh, afternoons are hard. It's not, I don't really care that much about the price action being kind of stagnant here. That doesn't really bother me. And that can always change in like the last hour of the day. Usually like there's a lunch period that's sort of a lull, and then we get a bit of a pick me up in the afternoon. Why is it a big deal? Why 31 though? Because 31 is the major creek. We haven't even approached it yet. So if there's something incongruent right now about what I'm seeing on RSI, which would tell you this is an area where you're going to get overbought or oversold, versus what we're seeing in the price action, which is suggesting that, I mean, just look at it. It is a big deal because you're already getting to a place where you're entering overbought territory on like high time frames. But we haven't even approached the top of the creek yet. That's a problem. So when I look at something like this doesn't necessarily mean you're going to drop or anything. It's just that that's not normal. That's sort of like it's almost a bearish divergence in terms of how that's moving, because it could mean that, yeah, there's just a wind up going on. You're about to explode. But notice like how this is approached once again overbought territory, but it's barely moved. Like we've spent a lot of time and effort going up and sideways here to get overbought, and we're not even advancing. So how would that be positive? I don't know how you could spin that and make it really positive. And that's unfortunately kind of where I've been at with GME. It's like I can make a case for it without, you know, just in general of like, oh, it's higher highs, higher lows. That's easy. It's channel bound, so it's in an upward channel. That's a very weak, boring upward channel. But you can make that case. I can make that case. It is making some advancements. We've been getting back above this 26 area. But to me, that was sort of just like a back test. Like you had to go there anyways if you were going to jump this creek. You were going to go back up to this level of support and resistance. But we spent days here, like multiple days here, just chopping. And as a result, you might expect that the RSI would have cooled. but it's actually not. It's been rising pretty steadily. So do I find it to be ultimately problematic? No. It's just more of like that sense of like, well, why? You know, like now if we break out, we're immediately on like 1 hour and 2 hour and 4 hour, we're going to be immediately overbought. Essentially, like as soon as we make a move, if we move past 27 up to whatever target, we're going to be immediately overbought. There's no question. That's not where I want to be, you know. I would have liked to have seen this move all the way up and make the advancement. So it's just been kind of slow. At the end of the day, does it make a huge difference? Well, it may not. It may not be the end of the world. I'm not trying to over exaggerate like downside or upside or whatever. I'm just saying like this is odd to me that we're kind of making these quick advancements and we're not really moving. We're making really quick advancements, getting overbought, and we're not really moving. So that's a strange place to be. That's why I've been kind of like humming and hawing about GME for the last 3 or 4 days. It's not just the sideways. That's boring. I can handle boring, but the setup itself, I would have expected it to be like cooling off. And instead it's like heating up. And I don't know why, but that bugs me. It just bugs me. Now, this is where the arguments start breaking down, because you can look at like low time frames up to like maybe 4 hours and you can say it's pretty bad. It doesn't look great. Daily doesn't look that bad. Daily looks like you've got plenty of room possibly to move to the upside, but it also reminds me a lot of a cat ear, and I'm not going to ignore that because that's just not something that I ignore. So anytime I see that kind of foundational move like this, and I see like a possibility here, this is like the low flat area. This is a possibility of a second ear. I think it's already happening to some degree on this chop here. I don't know how, but I think it's happening. You guys are like, well, how do you know then? Because there's an M cross down low right there. So I think it's already boiling out. Like I think this is the low M cross. This is the creek cross down bottom. That's all that happens. There's a full sequence down here. That's all that happens in the between the ears section. So the rest of this should be a cat ear. And cat ears either break out or break down. So you're either going to get that breakout and it's going to like really go, you know, or you're going to get the breakdown and you're going to get basically what looks like a head fake and then it's going to like dive. I'm a bit nervous that's what we're in for right now based on the way this is setting up on certain time frames. We might get this kind of pump and then just nosedive. Which is a distributive action. As I had originally thought, if you go back and you were watching videos like 3 weeks ago or something, I originally thought this was going to move up to 31 area, 32 area, and then buy back up and go to 40 and go ahead and hit the highs, maybe 40 to 45. As this has progressed, it's not really done a lot to me anyways to think that that has to happen. There's parts of me that think, yeah, you could slingshot and yada, 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 or just have a push. And that's what I was talking about early in the day. It's like we could have a push up. It could gap fill and then go right back up. You know what I mean? And that could give you a good shakeout on RSI and then just rock it back to the top. But that's not a breakout. That's more of just like a double top motion. Still could be a cat ear and you could still have a pretty nasty downward slide after, you know. And, really, in that case, you're just building out like a really long-term breakdown, you know? I don't really want that either, so. It's not that I'm bearish on GME on the whole. I'm not. It's just that's the pattern. Like, it's a cat ear, you know? And we're coming into that corner, and that usually indicates your area of break or make or break, so. I'm just not a fan of like everything being kind of overcooked except for like daily. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think I just think like the way it's building out, I don't know why, but I had a lot of confidence they were going to run it at least to 31 on this break. That's about as far as I would take it now. I don't have a lot of confidence they're going to push it as high as I thought it was going to go earlier. I think if they did that, it'd have to be after some kind of a deep move. I just do. I don't know why. Something, I got to put my finger on it. I know. There's just something about the setup that's bugging me really bad. Maybe it's unfounded. But you got to just respect your own brain. If you feel like there's something that's not quite right, then that's all I can say about it. I wish I could tell you exactly what it was. I think it's just this idea of like already being so overcooked. Like even if we get a good push, there's a squeeze action present, but I don't know, the way this thing's setting up like slow-mo. Yeah, this follows. Yeah, this follows. You can see that those trajectories follow those levels pretty well. So I think we're going to make this move. I do. I'm not trying to be overly bearish. I'm still feeling like even if we get a drop down to the gap first, we could do that first or we could do it later. I think we're going to see a push sometime over 27 and then up above at 29 and then up above at 31. 31 is going to be the level that really determines direction, because after you hit 31, you have to make a decision. 31 is a mark that indicates the outside of a much larger wedge with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It would be 6 hits. That's an adequate number of hits to have a strong wedge. So it's like the cat ear almost always looks like a wedge, the second one. I think it's there. And then breaking above that could yield another run, like a big run. You know, at least up to like 50, maybe beyond. So we've still got this cross trend. We haven't tested it yet. It's still high up. That's still a positive. You know, it's not all negative. I'm not trying to like be Mr. Negative every day. I'm really not. I'm just looking at the setup, trying to determine timing and what seems most likely. I think I originally had put it up here because I felt like the higher trajectory was better. I'm not so sure about that anymore. I think there's a few lower trajectories, this one specifically, that might be met. Kind of has to do with like the middle of the wave here, which I think is there. You see, this is the cat ear low. Why am I so obsessed with cat ears? Because they help me determine like wave position. So one of the things that always happens in the middle or bottom of a big wave is you get a smaller cat ear, because there's always a creek cross, right? The whole nature of this coming down and then coming back up is this idea that you're coming down, you're jumping over a resistance, right? So in this particular case, the resistance was this downtrend that we'd been dealing with right here, right? So we jumped over that resistance, and as you do that, it's easy to see it when you can visualize it this way. As you can see the M shape right there in the chart, that's the jump over the creek, you know, and then we find support on the other side. And you can see it in the RSI pretty easily. There's even like, it's funny too, this is where you get into like iterative nonsense. There's even like a smaller M down here, you know, and the bottom of that wave. So every wave top has an M, every wave bottom has an M, because there's going to be like micro versions of creek crosses, right? This has to cross this creek here, and then da-da-da-da. You know, it keeps going. So that's a fun academic exercise, but it really only matters ultimately as those small ones inform the large ones. So you don't really care that much unless you get the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is there's a bigger wave, right? And then this caused this jump. And so ultimately, where is that going? Well, usually what I look at, and if this were price action, I don't normally do this as much in RSI, although I use it sometimes. Usually I'd look at this. Like there's usually a downward cross going on, because this wave is position going down. So this jumped low, and then it's coming back up to retest this trend. So it's important that you know that this trend was established back in April and ultimately was fulfilled as it took off in May. This is not like completely separate from everything we've been talking about, you know. And so usually what we see is that somehow that's reflected in the price action. It's harder to see it here maybe. I don't really know even where to start. Maybe this guy. This like little M cross way down here in April. I think I talked about that one before as possibly being pretty important. Like it sets up this bigger upward move. Even though it's such a minor looking thing. It does, because this is the first place that the RSI, I mean it does pivot before then, but this is like one of the first major spots. So even before then, we could probably say it's even back here. I could make an argument that it's like way back here when that pivoting starts happening. And what's cool is like when we've been able to identify those beforehand, like as we go into those motions, if I can see them happening, it's really neat. So I know generally where the markers are, and that's why I usually mark off like between the ears and this and that, because I know that historically, like that marker between the ears, this is a waveform down, and then I know that that plays into what we see later. Do you see that? And if I ask you guys right now, does it look like this is playing into what we're seeing presently? You'd probably say, yeah, it does. We bounced on it. You know, like it's not irrelevant. It's important. Is that a significant area of support and resistance? Yes, it is. And it probably had made itself known when we came down the first time in May 17th. That was the first place we kind of touched. This would be then what? Some kind of a spring, right? So we built a support, we spring, we come back up. It's right there. You can see it in the sideways action. Support, spring, come back up, support, and then leave. Yeah. That angle was established back here. And so it's only confusing if you try to like separate waves like up and down. Like you think this is separate somehow and it's doing something completely irrelevant. That's the only reason that might be confusing to somebody. But if you think about a wave as a continuous motion, a piece of string, right, that's got to continue, it makes perfect sense that this would be the new like kind of central marker that we have to kind of meet this and find support on it. And this is why I'm like mildly concerned about, not super concerned, just kind of mildly concerned about retracing back down. On the other chart, I had us coming down as low as, what was it, like 23. I said, yeah, we could probably come down this low to like 23.77, and that would be a creek check here. Guess what? You came down to 23.77 on GME on this chart, you're basically like back testing right here, you know, on this guy. See how much that accomplishes? So while I'm in favor of an advancement, I could see very easily how maybe even if we did advance first and we didn't drop first, how you could hit 31 and then basically reject and come all the way back to like 23.77 or whatever it is down low to check this creek and to ultimately like do a backup. And what would that do for us? Not much, except kill a lot of time again. We would lose another wave down, and then we would have to reclaim it. And frankly, at this point, we could be chopping into the end of July, the way this thing's going. Like, this could be just like a massive, super boring... The way it's going, like, it wouldn't surprise me. And that could be your ear, right? We were talking about this like flat section here. I don't really want that, you know? It'd be all kinds of boring. Like you think the boring's going, the boring might just be getting started, you know what I mean? look at the ears on the daily MACD. Okay, let's check it out. A coiling bottom, maybe. To me, it looks like, yeah, potentially like it's trying to bottom, and then I could see that. It looks like it's crossed up here. That's the thing though, is like usually within about a day or so after the cross, we get a big push. We talked about last week, it's usually about a 20% move. I think it was a week ago, we talked about every time this thing crossed up. I don't know if it was on this time frame. No, it was on this time frame. Once it got like the cross up, it went about 20%, something like that. So we should be getting a buy-in right now. So like where's the volume? It's all kind of happening but not happening. I don't know. But where does 20% get you? Like let's just look. Takes you up to 31, you know. So it's the same move possible. So I know Shaw, you were saying like I was talking about topping at 27. I think that might have been more of a local top because I think we might have a chance of getting a bigger push to 31. I'm just kind of thinking it was going to happen today, and it hasn't happened. And I'm a bit concerned because normally when you see this, you get that cross upward, it's pretty violent. That's where the ears kind of jump, like this guy, and it jumps. Once you get over that like final hump, you usually just go. And these ones that are ascending don't usually bother the stock. You kind of just start leaping back above. Let me put it like as simply as I can. So if you have the main downward creek and you have the main upward creek, so like let's say you're finding support on this creek, and we have been, that's kind of this red guy here. There's another one that's like slightly above. Even if you break below this, which often happens in the wave, it just does. Even if you break below this, this is usually where the bottom is. You don't ultimately take off until you get back above this guy. And this is where the stock usually kind of explodes to the upside once it gets back above here. If it rejects, this is where we often see like a latent distribution. Do you see the difference? This looks like a classic cat ear to the downside. And then this looks like a pretty classic like SOS breakout. So that's my main concern right now is like I don't want to see that latent downside necessarily here at this particular moment in time. But it might be that case. I don't know. I don't really want to advance on weakness either. So that's just me. I'm very like peculiar about these setups. So yep, and then AMC is just kind of messing with us too. Really very little movement on the day. As far as hard lines go, that was a creek backup. I would say this is probably a larger M cross here on this structure. So this bottoming is 1, 2. I mean, it's pretty much done. It's a 4 top, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it could be done. I can see it down bottom a little more clearly. Yeah, and it's a 4 top. So the fourth one's usually like a hook. So if this hook takes us high, it may not be bad. It could be really bullish. It's a weird place to see a 4 top because it's like a bottom. It's very strange because I'm like, you're like, wait, you're calling it a top, Booksy. I know, but that's the way it's appearing. It's like a chopping bear flag, you know. I want it to break up, but it has to do certain things. Failed to advance here, which is a big deal. And now I'm starting to feel like, no, I already know this. If it doesn't advance and it breaks down here, it's going to go down I mean, period, you know, is going to go down low. It's going for the gap. And if it can advance, it should just go back up and leave. I think we're going to get a pretty succinct move out if we can get above here. I could see this going pretty fast even. You know? Wave down, wave up, build support, break out, SOS. It's the same thing I'm talking about on GME right now. Bummer, man. Setup, dude. Oh well. So yeah, just kind of waiting. I guess that's all there is to it. Just kind of waiting. So I can see this wave up, waiting for the second wave. I'm waiting for the bigger wave, or rather I should say. Yeah. I think we're going to use this to kind of, these platforms and these trajectories to sort of lay up onto 31. And then I think from that point, we're going to have to face the outer creek. And that might be where we see a knockdown. They try to knock us down to new lows. And then probably if we don't hold the early supports at like 26 and break out, which is possible. It's possible because I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't know, man, maybe 26 holds and then it just jumps here and we just go, you know. That looks good to me too. Yeah, that looks fine as well. But whatever. Point is like there's a reason that I'm like concerned about 31 and then going to back down to like 23.70 or whatever. And they're not necessarily either one bearish or bullish. It's just sort of my ramblings about it, which I guess has been the me of the day kind of thing. It's a rambling Monday. So I feel like this wave should break up with a lot of strength if it's going to break up. And if we continue on this kind of weakness here, we might just see it go down and just be done with it. Not forever, just back down to like 23.50. I'm not really sure where else you would go at this point. Yeah, guys. And then it's not really much of a stretch to imagine like a low target here. If you break down on this wedge, I don't know how you could go back down to 9, but I guess over time on this main downward trend, you could see it come back down. I kind of like the idea of an S-curve here better. Like middle and then break down again, middle. Maybe the extension on this is how you get down without breaking to like new lows, how you get down to the creek. Like if this went up to like 43 or something and then it went on an S-curve path down, I know people would be like, it's already breaking out, it's not going. But just bear with me. If it went up there and it went to the top and it did something like this, right, on RSI, and it pushed up high and then it broke down. When we got to like 43, most people would be like, yay, that was good. Then it broke down and it came below and it did like a 50-50 swing. That 50-50 would be a pretty simple one-to-one with this original move back to this creek. So it's sort of a easy to imagine slide here where you could create like a whipping effect, push up and then drop through that creek. It's a lot, I know, but instigate like a major sell-off at like 44 and take it all the way down to like 14. The reason that that's important is because I think AMC might do something similar, but maybe to a greater height. We'll see. It could be interesting though, to come back down and retest the creek that way. And most people would see that as really bearish, but it's actually not if you think about it, because if it holds here higher and builds out again, you could have a massive second run, because this could be like a wave one. And a wave one here, if it did go low, not only would it check the creek and be done with it, but then you'd have like the next wave out. Yeah, it could be really positive. Fill all those gaps. I don't think anyone would see that as very positive, at least at first. Then you could see a big move to like 290 or something. That number kept coming up before. It is what it is. This is the cat ear, so it either holds or it doesn't. It's pretty simple. I would estimate a cat ear breakdown goes low and a cat ear breakout. I mean, the ear itself might come pretty high before any kind of move. In order for this to continue, you'd have to probably find support. Maybe like here. We'll see where that goes later. Yeah, that could work. Just an LPS. I know. Y'all are like, please don't let that other thing happen. I'm not in control of that other thing. I don't know. I think it could probably be one of those situations where it shorts down into the next earnings. It would be like a long-winded, if it did do this, it'd be some kind of long-winded mess. Like a big old S-curve down. But this also follows somewhat with what I was thinking for AMC, because I had AMC going up, maybe making a new high even, and then coming back down in August. The only thing so far that's been really off is just the timing of a move up. Just hasn't happened yet. It's been pretty slow. Looks like IWM is making new highs on the day, pushing up higher, making another grab. Figured this might happen. We were talking about it earlier, and I was saying like I'm gonna get out while it's peaking this morning, but there's a possibility this could rise to maybe to like 220s. This is a little more like a topping action than we've seen lately. So just like back here, if it does continue, I don't know, it already kind of pushed up above, didn't it? Yeah, it needs to kind of make a decision then. So we'll see. It's got to back up, find a creek, and then it can advance. Maybe. I think it could see up to 220 or so. I don't know. Not my play anymore, but I'll keep following it. I think for AMC, we're talking about 7 to 9, 12 to 15. That's, I don't know if you guys are talking about, oh, you're talking about MLGO. I don't know what that is. Sounds really similar to AMC though. 7 to 9 and then up. You just effing ramble a bunch of nothing. Well, then you can leave. I'm not rambling nothing. You just need to learn how to listen better. Because in my mind, like, I'm making like mental notes about levels and thinking about things in those terms. So, and talking about waveform analysis is not rambling nothing. It's learning. But hey, man, you do you. If you don't want to hear it, then the door is right there. See ya. Good luck. I don't know what to tell you. It's not like I'm here for the clicks. I don't care. There's like 40 people in here right now. If you don't want to hear it, you don't have to be here. Not going to hurt my feelings. It's amazing to me though, like how if I'm, I don't know. It really isn't amazing. It's just people talking. Just people talking out their butts. If I rambled about nothing, I wouldn't have made 600% on this IWM trade. I guess that's probably all I needed to say. I didn't say 600 bucks. I said 600%. That's as boastful as I'm going to get on here. I just think it's stupid to come on and just tell somebody that you're just saying nothing. Yeah, I used to hear that a lot too. People who probably came on and wanted to hear something bullish and they didn't hear what they wanted to hear. Used to hear that a lot back in the day when I first started. They'd be like, that was a whole 40 minutes of wasting my time. And I'm like, okay. You didn't have to listen. You could have just turned it off. It's free, man. Come and go. I just don't understand. I guess I just don't understand the trolls. I like messing with them sometimes, but like, is the troll mentality that you're like, somehow you're trapped in like a dungeon and you can't escape unless you like get your word in? And so you're stuck here and you can't leave. You're stuck here against your will. And you're like, you know what? I can't leave this place until I just tell this person how much I don't like them. Cool, man. I bet that's going to get you far in life. It's a good attitude. It just cracks me up. I love it. Just ramble about nothing. You want me to ramble about nothing? This is rambling about nothing. What I'm doing right now. Ironically, you got me to ramble about nothing. AKA your comment. Jeez Louise. Where is this guy? I'm going to just block him. I got to find him again. I think he's gone, but I don't even know where it is. Oh, there it is. It's this dude. All right. Easy block. He probably already left. Sorry, that really was rambling about nothing, wasn't it? talking about troll comments is rambling about nothing, you know. Jeez. What a world we live in. Strange. I mean, there's always been like mockers and scoffers in the world, though. That's always been the case. Used to be that they had to do it to your face, though. They had to like come in and like be in the room with you, face you. How many clouds are outside? What do you think of the new Eminem album? You guys are funny. Daily reminder, CLOV. CLOV. I don't know about CLOV. You know, it's one of those meme stocks that, you guys are like, did you say meme? I didn't pronounce it wrong. I actually meant meme. Like kind of like a meme stock. Health Investment Corp. Pity the fool. I don't pity him, though. I have like zero pity for him right now. I'm all about loving your enemies and stuff, but I don't pity him. I don't feel sorry for him. Not in that way. I would say CLOV is facing a breakout that looks like it could go pretty high, probably to 391. My guess. So it's about halfway up a move to, I think, maybe it's more like 4. It's a potential top. That's my estimation for CLOV. That's about as much as you're going to get from me right now on that. So I don't know if it's going to go way higher, but it's a good setup. It looks a lot like a spring into an SOS. But these kind of moves are difficult because they're hard to determine if you're going to get any kind of a backup or something. So like a backup here could come pretty low. So if it suddenly stalled out and then came back down after it makes a top, it has to come higher. Then you could end up with a backup that comes pretty steep. This creek goes very far down. I mean, the backup technically didn't even check the bottom. I mean, it really could come all, I know it sounds horrible to say this, but it could come all the way back to like 70 cents. And someone out there will tell me like, oh, I can't do that. There's no way. Well, that's kind of what ChargePoint did. It went really high and it pushed up and then it just kind of fell flat on its face and came back down. So I'm not saying they're the same, okay? I don't think that that's always the case, but that everything has to look the same. I'm just thinking out loud, like if you make an SOS here and it kind of fails to advance, it can come down pretty far. Because there's no real test here on the bottom, and it would be over the creek. So, yeah, and then you can you could see how that could be a wave 1, and then you could have a fib extension that goes up to the target we were talking about, the 390s, way up here. It's fairly straightforward. So just keep in mind with CLOV, I'm all for it if you guys are in it. I don't want it to go down. I'm just saying like it could. There's a decent chance that it could have a deep retracement back to near 70 cents before advancing. So what you'd want to see in an SOS is that it comes higher than the top here at like 160s or whatever it is. I can't really see it that clearly. I think it's 160. And then you'd want to see it consolidate and then bounce off and continue. And if it does a distributive action on the top, you're probably going to come back down. And I could imagine this coming pretty low, potentially. Yeah. So one of the things that kind of bugs me right now about IWM is the this top here. Yeah, I don't think CLOV is a bad trade. You got to be careful with this could be like the next NU, you know, or it could be up at $12 before too long. This is kind of how NU's bottom went. It went into like not a spring, but it did like an LPS. It didn't ever come back down low. It came into like, did an LPS here, and then just took off, and then it was over, you know. So it could be very much like that. It doesn't have to be way back down, and then eventually NU worked its way back up to its all-time highs. I mean, if it's a good company, if it's a good long-term play, then it'll do that. You know, I think it can totally do that. So, yeah, but it's a mixed bag in terms of when that happens and how it could come back down. I think it's very possible. It didn't make a super strong retest here at 71 cents, so that creek is real low. And that's sort of where I'd leave it, just as an open possibility. The only thing that bugs me about IWM right now is it made a higher high again on like a divergence. There's a lot of divergence on IWM, and it's not really mattered that much. But it did it at, again, historically a level that you could have a decent resistance at. So we'll see. I think it's weird that it advanced early instead of building out. Because these other guys, they built out first, and then they hit a low support and advanced and just left. Every time. And this one, it didn't come too fast to the top. It built out, and then it left. Those are more classic reaccumulation schematics. This one just kind of went up straight into a new high, so it's a little different. It seems a lot more volatile. That would suggest to me that even if we're not at a top, that there's still more people trading it as if it is a top, even if it's going to go higher, okay? So we'll see. I find the early top a little unusual. That's all I'm trying to get at. Like normally we've been making those lows, and there's no real like oh, this one's like that. Just kind of pushes up and then keeps high, breaks out. That's a little more like almost like a mini cup and handle. So this could just like chop and go up. I'm just kind of curious about the setup, being that it pushed high early and before close. I wouldn't hold past this point if it started coming back down again. I would probably be just out for now. So I think it's at a near top. CLOV is transitioning into sales as service, insider, $1 million buy, profitability soon. It's a long hold now that they didn't force a reverse split. Possible back down if no good news. Right, it's not about down in this case for CLOV isn't really bearish. So if you heard that, don't hear that. I don't think this is very bearish. This looks like a spring action. That's a very high volume sell-off followed by a nice high volume bottom buy-in that jumped the creek. So very strong. But I want to say that SOS with a backup makes sense here and that backup may only come down like halfway through the range to like 1. So if the idea is we're staying above $1, then maybe it just comes back down to 1. But the creek itself is pretty darn low. It's like all the way back as a retest. So yeah, maybe it's an LPS, an SOS with a backup to a creek that's like an LPS. The last point of support. I could see that being like there's a decent little creek right there. that push up and that support. So that could be it, maybe. It's just a thought. In the event of a strong SOS here, it just chops along 160 and then pushes up. So, man, I can't believe that guy earlier said I just ramble about nothing. Like, what in the world? I know I ramble. I admit to that. I'm definitely a rambler. But just no substance, huh? Whew, man. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one thing that's happened that I'm not pretty happy about with MPW is y'all are like, let it go, dude. I know. I just feel my feelings, that's all. One of them people. God, you must be a nightmare to live with. Well, my wife knows that, so don't worry about it. She knows how to deal with me. One of the things that really bugs me is, man, this volatility is just stuck in the mud. I'm genuinely kind of shocked at how little volatility has really increased. It's been really dead, and I have had massive gains previously on MPW from very similar levels. When we went from 426 and we rose all the way up to like 635, the gains on those calls was like ridiculous high. The ones that I got, which were like $10 strikes, but a very similar kind of move here, a big move, just nothing, you know. I think people are just still really not convinced that this is bullish. They still think it's really bearish, and there's probably reasons, you know, for that. But it's just not really gaining a lot of traction. I think if it makes this move and we do get the push all the way up to like 580, I want to see those call options come to life. But they've been pretty dead. Like really dead. Like not moving. Like 0% all through this. Just no change. It's mostly because of volume. You don't usually see the volume hike on stocks like this unless there's a big... I mean, it's a REIT, but you get what I'm saying. REIT! It's a real estate investment trust. But still, I'm like, I would expect there to be some growth. Oh, now they're up. Now that I said that, they're up like a couple pennies. Of course they are. 20% growth. There you go. Y'all are like, that's good, right, Booksy? Yeah, I fully expect them to be like way, way higher, but that's okay. We'll get there. I'm not even going to touch them until they're like way up there. Because that move on the 13th, I'm going to check it out. I'll do it in the background since you guys don't care that much about MPW. I think there's like 2 or 3 people that like are interested. I'll let you guys know. But I won't keep it on the screen. Yeah, I don't know what to make of this, guys. I really genuinely don't know if this is bearish or bullish. If I had to guess, I would say more bearish than bullish because of the upthrust and the fail to continue down. You always know I'm going to say but if this can hold the creek here and hold this support, then it should be fine. Otherwise, it's a cat ear that's ending distributively. I hope you can see why. There's a wedge here, right? And if it ends in a distribution, this fails to advance for like another day or so, it's going to dump. It looks like we just kissed 530 and bounced. So maybe if we can hold this level and just start to get that jump. So here's what I want to see as a bull. I want to see this as a low creek cross. I want to see it jump here. And what the? My internet just went from like decent to horrible. I want to see this jump and then advance here. I don't want to see it fail again. I think if it fails again, that's not good. Yeah, on the 13th, those calls went up to like 37 cents, 38 cents per strike. So if there's a continuous advancement, I think we're going to see a pretty big move. But right now, it's like nothing. I think we can easily get up to 40 cents. Which may not sound like a lot, but that's a good amount. Honestly, it could get way higher than that, but it just depends. I think what might be likely for MPW, those $10 strikes might see $1. It could see up to $1. 85 cents to $1. I wouldn't put them way beyond that though. Not yet. No matter what happens, if we hit like $8 or something, I'm just gonna get out. Like, I don't think we're gonna go all the way to 14 right away. So if MPW can make that big stretch up to 7 or 8, I'm happy. I'll just take what I get. It's hard, man. It's a hard one to trade because you really won't see it, and you won't see a lot of the gain potential until it gets volume. I've had that happen on a few different trades before, where you're kind of in it early and there's not really a lot of volume. So the bid and the ask are so far apart sometimes. And that would concern me if it were short term, but it's a long term play. It's January, so it's a 6-month leaps. So I'm not super concerned. They just have to come alive between now and then. Yeah, I don't know. The gain potential on those is pretty insane. I don't think it makes any sense to try to chart it or fully understand it. Yeah, MPW is a weird one. Because I thought I thought it might, that if he comes to life, it's going to stay alive long. It didn't really stay alive long, but that move didn't stay alive long either last time. So it was like, I don't know what I was expecting. It basically just went back down to where it was. That's why I didn't get out, because it was still profitable, but it was just kind of chilling out. We didn't really lose the value until here, till this drop down. So that's funny. My average is down now. I brought it down pretty low. Yeah, with little to no increase in volatility, if this hit by end of July, if this hit $8, it would be a potentially like a 900% trade. That's a lot. If there's no change in volatility at all, again, assuming that it hits like $8 by end of July, that's a 600% trade. Now that might seem ridiculous because you're like, well, that's a huge return, Booksy. Yeah, but I just did that on IWM. You know, it's not that weird. Sounds like a lot, but it's ultimately like, if you do the trade right, then you're in good shape, you know, for good exits and for big profits. So I'm going to mark off just so I have them. This is where I got out early today. And then this is where I got out at the top here. I really caught the top. I think I really caught the top today on IWM. So we'll see. If there's continuation, cool. It looks to me like it's broken down finally, like kind of relieving that stress, bigger sell down. We'll see. Maybe it still finds a bottom locally. I'd expect it to come back down and retest. Maybe come back down and retest 216, and then we'll go from there. We're already almost there, so it's a backup, and then you could retest support. Yeah, so it's hard because I'm like, it says it's a low probability, you know what I mean, of profit. But these are long-term trades, and I'm like, if it doesn't even make sense to me, I can't quite fathom. I don't want to get greedy about it because you never really know what can happen in the market. I genuinely cannot fathom an IV change of like 200 to 300 to 400%, which often happens on these bigger moves. So if there is a significant move, it's just bonkers to me. Like, it doesn't seem right. It'd be like a 2,000% gain. But then again, that means that the price has to hit like $1.80 on the MPW calls, and I don't know if it's going to do that. I think it might get stuck at like $1. So yeah, like, that's not bad. No, it's not bad. It's still like 1,000%. Kind of makes me want to just even this out. Just be done with it. Sure. Huh, Bugsy. I don't know, man. I don't want to pump the stock either. There's always a possibility that you're wrong and downside happens. You know. I'm curious if we get to this top, if we're going to have to make some kind of major retracement. I sort of have it going like straight up, but we didn't come back down today. And I'm wondering if we're going to get this gap fill at like 484 and just continue. I kind of think we might chop back down. We may need to come back to this creek again. I don't know. Or at least back down to 450 again. We'll see. That's a possible place. All right, AMC had a good bounce on 530. Nice tall wick on the 30-minute. It's still sitting underneath the creek, and it looks like we're going to close that way, which is sort of a bummer. I don't know. This is what happens when your stocks do a whole lot of nothing. Boy, this was like one of the lowest viewing days I've had in like months and months and months. And somebody told me earlier that they couldn't find my live link, so shadow banned. I don't think that's a thing. More than likely, people are just busy, and they didn't really want to watch on a mostly flat day. Or they didn't like that I was bearish. That was someone else said that too. This could be a gap up opportunity for GME. I don't know. With my luck, I'll say that, and it just gaps down or something. Yeah, but remember, like, I think last time IWM, and they did this as well, like it topped out or something, and like as it was topping or going back, reconsolidating, that's when AMC and GME ran. Like, I'm not making that up. It really was the way it happened. If you go back to, where was it, May? What was it, May 1st or something? May? Gosh, that was a long time ago now. Yikes. Whenever it was that we ran up, May 6th. I don't know. Yeah. Here, like, while GME was kind of topping off, this is like May 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. So from May 7th through May 15th, AMC and GME were having their big run up, and then they came back down. And really, if you look at it, it's a downward wave during the uptrend. If you check out the waves here, there was a big wave up, and then this is right here, this pocket on this creek cross. This is where AMC and GME are making their big moves. It's kind of strange to me because you would think that they would not be that disconnected. You're like, why? They've always been disconnected. Maybe I don't know. It could be positive then if IWM takes a break. Because while it's made this big leap to the upside, maybe it takes a break and chops for a few days. And then we see AMC and GME make their big moves. That actually would follow pretty well what I drew here. I'm not saying I want it to stop. I'm just saying it would work. You could imagine it. It's pretty close to what I drew over here. Yeah, maybe. Oh, gosh. The spit girl. Gross. People get famous for the dumbest things. What do I think about tomorrow? I don't know. I'm kind of making a bit of a statement right now. Wondering because during the last move up, during the IWM push here, which is on the first part of this bigger S-curve, AMC and GME, if you look at their charts, they don't really move until near the top. Like IWM had already made 75% of its move, and then income, AMC and GME exploding, to the upside. So maybe this doesn't end in tears after all, You guys are like, no. I'm just saying it looks good to go if it can, and even if it makes this hit at 505, I really wouldn't care if we get a little gap down and then run. Who cares? I'm just not so sure about 15 anymore as a target. I guess we'll see what happens when GME gets there. This is Friday, May 10th, Monday, May 13th. So think about that, you know? And then IWM on May 13th. Guys, this is like the last little leg for that, and then this is where AMC and GME have like this explosive move. So you guys are like, so basically next week. I don't know that for sure. I'm just saying. It seems like maybe if this has a nice topping period here, we might see AMC and GME finally make their moves. Because right now they're delaying. They're definitely not running with the market. They're stuck. We both got into setup positions where I think they could have potential big upside, but they're just sitting there not doing anything. The market, meanwhile, finally made its move. Small caps have advanced. Maybe they're taking those profits from stuff like other small caps and then putting those into the AMC and GME for a run-up. I don't know. That could be part of it. You know, your bigger institutions are taking profits early, so they're the ones that during this run-up would be selling off here into FOMO. Most of their sales would be happening in this last leg here, not at the top. Although they might open short positions up there or something, or sell calls or whatever. This is where most of those positions are getting closed out. So they're going to do it while the people are sort of still expecting it to keep running. So this kind of push right here, 15 to 18, could happen if we get something very similar on IWM where we start getting the sell-off. And this was the first time it made a big significant pullback. You can see it's basically just LPSs. And then here it has an advancement and then it drops real low and takes a couple days to recover. So I don't really want to jinx it for people that are still in IWM. But this is a potential top here, and I think it would be a good place to have a pullback or some sideways at the very least. So maybe we get a nice like healthy retracement and then we get like one more nice big push out. And this is where it goes up next month into next Monday or something, and maybe this is where we can see AMC and GME start moving in the midst of this. It's just an observation, but that is what happened last time, so I don't know. Now's the big move right here. And it, again, IWM was basically at the top, so the timing here has been ridiculous slow, really slow. I think I was looking at it more like early July, sometime between the 5th and I think I said like the 10th, this period. So this has been delayed. I definitely think it's a possibility though. We could get one more sell down to the gap, maybe, and then just take off. In fact, I might even throw some more money at it if I see the right thing, because I think it looks good overall. I really don't think it looks bad. I think if it goes down and fills the gap at 5, I'm probably going to be, I would play that as a bull, because I think that could be a really strong rebound and then just take off to the upside. Yeah. Genuinely. Yeah, I think we already kind of left it behind, man. There's not, I don't know, there's no real arguments there. It looks to me like it's sort of left that initial widening behind, and it's still holding up. So bears are eyeballing that gap, but if it's a slingshot, Say slingshot one more time, Booksy. One more time. Actually, it looks like it's done. But let's say it went down first thing in the morning. Like very first thing, we get a gap down. It drops really hard to 5. I think it rockets back up to $6. Head and shoulder break. Could be pretty clean. That's a really fast move up to possibly up to almost 8, 750s. Yeah, I'm feeling it. I think, yeah. That's interesting. So from 504, the top is 750, which is the same as this move. You're like, why not 15? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we just failed to catch that train. I'm not sure if we're going to get there. If we do, it's going to have to be a 50-50 extension. I still think it's possible. I'm not in the opinion that everything that I say could happen will happen. At the end of the day, it's hard to say. We might get to that 15, we might not. But 750 would be the midline anyways, and I do think that's very likely. So I still think that for now, like early target would be 750. And that seems like likely by, if not Friday, then by Monday. So we should still get a good move. It's just not as fast as I was hoping. Then I don't know. I guess we'll find out. You know? Frankly, like the last time we ran, that was just like the bottom. That's what I was making the case of before, is if you look at the trajectories, the build out just, that's like the bottom for the build out. So it just basically points to the next floor. It doesn't actually point to the high. So even though that trajectory is really low, previously, that actually pointed to the next breakout, and then that ultimately ended up being the floor. I don't think it has to be the same this time. I'm just saying could be similar. So I would still be really cautious and just kind of watch 7 for possible distribution. I think if it just kind of ignores it and we kind of see it and it hits it and we get the extension, I think we're just going to move. You know, I don't really feel like there's going to be a lot of hesitation. I think it'll be a really, really fast, quick move up to the highs somewhere between 15 and 18. And that'll be that. But I won't sit there and like mess with it. You know, if it drops, if it doesn't hold and it ends up messing around at 750s. So yeah, so I think tomorrow might be a really good day for trading in if it drops again. Yeah, well, I guess you never know. Maybe it just starts running. I think if GME gets to 31, so again, it doesn't really matter to me if it drops or not particularly, but if it can get to 31 and AMC is at like 7 already, then I think it's likely AMC is going to make new moves. If we see we'll see something like this on like GME. And then AMC could make it a bigger stride on the second move. That would be like doubling it. I'm not positive about GME continuing after this point up here. I just don't a little like more bearish and cautious because of what happened in June of 2021. MPW ended the day at 475. Not much to say about that except that it's a previous floor. And I mean, my expectations are still like probably going to have to come back and find a greater support at 462 or 460s. It just seems important. We'll see. IWM. You already kind of know what I think about it. I generally feel that this is pretty much the top. This was my target from a while back, and I made the move. I made the play. I'm done with the play. I'm out of my positions. That doesn't mean it can't keep going just because I exited my positions. But I will say that when we looked at it early today, that 218 looked like a logical top based on the historic nature of it going back. Just a really quick recap because I don't want to waste a bunch of time talking about the same things again. But you guys that were here probably remember we talking about it. If you weren't here, this will be good to see. So if you just look at the big picture, this area from about 207 up to 211 was the contended zone when it first entered here in 2021, January, and then when it left, it ultimately distributed from there in March of 2022. So the entry and exit was all kind of based around that level. When you look at the current SOS, where it is, it topped off, the SOS did, which is a sign of strength for this bottom range. It topped off right along the midline of like 201, but ultimately it goes higher, and the expansion of that, the width, if you want to call it, of that SOS ends up pushing it up to that 211 mark, and it kind of fails to hold that as support ever, so it continually rejects against it. We've blasted right through it. Well, in 2021, it's just as an example, we actually hit what I think is like a midline for that range, and it's around, so this would be considered like a preliminary support region that was built out, and the early supply is 218. So we marked it off, and you can see like that's the area that this kind of padded in. So I think there's a need to find that support at 207. I think that when you look at the big picture here, it's easy to see it just kind of rocketing. That's obviously always part of like everybody's trading plan. It's just going to rocket. It's just going to keep going straight up. But I wouldn't be surprised if we chopped for a while and then came back down and really spent some time coming back to retest both this creek here and that 207 range. I don't think it necessarily has to come super low. It's just my thought about where it might go. And I had originally, yes, kind of thought this was a bigger S-curve and we would come back down and catch it and then ride it out. I still think that's likely going to happen. It makes sense right here as an M-cross, as a wave, up, down, and then back up again. So that's where I'm at. I do think eventually we're going to get to like 252 or something ridiculous. So the time in August would be a good time, in my opinion, if it does come back down, to watch for a potential new entry. All of that speculation, it hasn't yet turned. But in theory, could it be done for now? Sure. I mean, the 4 hours came up above, like, I mean, it's really high to oversold, or overbought, excuse me, at like 83. I think the daily is probably going to look a little bit cooler, but yeah, I mean, you could still see a couple dollars here. That's why I'm not so sure. I mean, we may end up getting up to like 220s or 227 or something. You never know. I just want to see like a healthy retracement, and then at that point, I think it would be good to go. So somewhere down here around 210, 211 makes sense to me. It would check a lot of things off the box, and then you could just warp through the range. I would then expect you to just kind of see a big push through 218 and then all the way up. And frankly, that's where you might get a little hesitation, but I would expect a top at 226. And then you push to all-time highs. And who knows? Build out a range. It's hard to say. You know? It really is. I don't know exactly what happens then. And this is going into the 2025 year. So this is like a rally into a potential rally here at the end of the year in November. But then you're looking at 2025, and the wave at that point could be more downward. It just depends. This is where things get maybe debatable in terms of long-term positioning, because my expectation is usually that you're going to see some kind of a backup or some kind of support built. And at this point, 218 might end up being the level, you know? It's like kind of the mid zone here. We may not ever see below that, and we could just continue to advance. It's a possibility. But that's neither here nor there. It's way off in the future. So for now, this looks like the move to me. I think it goes up to 250s. And then we'll see if we can top off here. Overall, though, decent day. Just kind of not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, I already kind of mentioned I didn't particularly like that AMC pushed up resistance and then came back and closed beneath it. It would have been better to have advanced when it was ready to go and then jumped all at once. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. Could be a bottom, maybe for a secondary move like this. I also was speculating earlier about maybe this being a wider wave than I thought it was. In which case, yeah, tomorrow you would see a breakout to the upside. This would be like the middle. And you'd race up to like the 550s and then chase it down to like whatever level you need to go to on the backup. Downside is so easy right now. Downside to me is like 5. It's so easy. I don't know. It's just the gap fill. GME is the same way. It keeps setting up like it could go, but if it broke down, it's like, yeah, we could just lay back down onto the gap fill, and that would put us right back at the creek. I mean, it's a triangulation, and I don't even really feel like it's that difficult to do. Just draw a line across, and you can see, like, yeah, there it is. You know, it's right there. So GME closing at 27. This says 26.97. This says 27. I don't know what to believe. I mean, it closed above it. I think where that support is, but I'm not a big fan of running up into close like that. Kind of looks like a rising wedge with the RSI kind of staying flat and or dropping. So it's like a mild bearish divergence. I can't say that enough because there's just a lot of it going on GME lately. Maybe it's a enticement for shorts and they're not really concerned, whoever the operator is. They're just trying to like make it look bad. But I feel like there's something a bit oppressive about that reality when you see that kind of narrowing range, and it's more like a parabola here, and that RSI kind of coming down. It's a very difficult place to be bullish. I don't know. Really makes very little difference. So I feel like the drop here would be fine. Like, I just don't know. Seems like it'd be okay. But I will say, at least in terms of like trajectories and junk, we're late again for like another big move. So whatever that means to you, you can interpret it however you want. Rough day, huh? Well, Shaw, yes. I just don't know if it's going to go down first. If we woke up tomorrow morning and we had gap down to this near this other gap and we just kind of rode down low, I'd probably be pretty bullish for like a big reversal. Does that make sense? I would think it would just kind of race backwards. I know it sounds a little odd, but I really do. I think it would just be a backup, and then we would hit the gap and probably just go. That's assuming that it does that. You know, it could be more of like a day-long kind of thing, but we're sort of running behind schedule, so it's hard for me to imagine that unless it's like a gap. It's more realistic if this like gaps down suddenly. I know it's odd based on where it is, but yeah, if this were to gap down to like 2460, and then just immediately like recover, I could see it just rocketing. The alternative was quite a bit bizarre, which is to come up first here and then come way low. And that seems really weird unless you look at this as a symmetry. As a function of symmetry, that might make more sense because you could have it rise up and try to advance and then come back down. It's sort of like a larger symmetrical pattern and then rocket back up. Really bizarre, but it could be the case that you're setting up a larger, let's call it a widening, you know, and you're actually looking to kind of create this broadening. This sort of narrows in as a, I don't know, let me put it this way, like if I were looking at this as like a narrowing and then a widening, it would be easy for me to illustrate it with these like kind of points as like, again, if you were looking at it as a mode of symmetry, like you might say that seems pretty straightforward. It's sort of narrowed coming in at like a parabola down and so parabola out. I just think that's a bizarre setup. So it's hard for me to advocate for something that looks so weird, except that the later hit coming down to lower portions at like 2390, except that makes sense on this macro scale because it would be like a big retest and then you would just race back up. So it might seem a little bizarre to say like something like that could happen, but if you go back and you look at the big picture, it's not really that weird, you know, to think that you could come back and sort of find a ground here and then advance again. Either way, we're not looking at early July for the bigger move. We're looking at late July. And mid-July might provide us with a kind of a halfway move. I'm thinking the same thing for AMC. Like mid-July might be more of like we're halfway there kind of thing, like up in the 7s or something, or 8s. And then later in July, we might get that second push after a week or so. It's kind of like this build out where you have that advancement and then you just chill out for a little bit and then you go big. That would be like this guy right here, like advancement, chill out, and then go big. An AMC, sort of an early advance, chill, and then go. But what also makes sense of it is IWM. Very, very simple analysis, not meant to be like the game changer kind of thing. It's just a simple way of looking at this, but the setup it's similar. If you look at the advancement, like this was the bottom, and there's this big advancement up, and this is the beginning of the S-curve. There's a bottom and then a big advancement up. This is kind of the end, potentially, of the S-curve. You could see this kind of finding like a second wind towards the top, and this is right here in this pocket is really where, and frankly, it's like on this second wind is where GME and AMC took off. Very strange because they're very low, you know. during this time period. AMC is like chopping low and then has a sudden massive advancement. So do I think it has to be the same? No. But I don't think that. But I think that it's possible because I have a secondary target out here on like Tuesday of next week. And it seems like between now and then would be at least enough time for that first big move. I don't know about the rest of it. I really don't know exactly what to expect after that point, but we're not there yet. It's just one of those things, just kind of observationally would make sense to me. And then it would give you a succinct wave down to 207. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens to AMC after that if it doesn't make the moves. Then you'd have to be counting on like a negative inverse beta rather. But this kind of follows. So what would be really annoying would be to like chop for another several weeks into August, see this push up and then go sideways somehow. I don't know, for like weeks or something into like July and then August, and then have to wait for bigger mid-August move. That would stink. Well, I can say this much with relative surety. We're running out of space. So once again, we're at a kind of a critical moment. I think AMC and GME at most could have one more day of kind of nonsense, but then they're out of space. I don't think there's anywhere else to go. Like you can see AMC, it chops into Wednesday here, early day, and there's nowhere else to go. Like if you manage to go sideways for a whole day tomorrow, by Wednesday you'd have to go somewhere, up or down. So like, it'll make a move. That always happens in the market. You get to these pinch points. I think GME is kind of the same way. It could technically go sideways till about Wednesday, and then it would be out of room. It'd have to make a move up or down. So at worst, we have another sort of flat day tomorrow. At best, it's got some big moves built into it, up and down potentially, but it'd be both. Both could be true in this strange world. But tomorrow should be interesting. I think if tomorrow is really flat and boring, and we see IWM chopping and AMC and GME chop, I probably won't stream as much, you know. But I would say by Wednesday, there's no way these guys can't do something. Like they have to move somewhere. They're running out of space. Like this would be like an ascending triangle, and it would be out of room by Wednesday morning. And AMC, if it went sideways, would just be a kind of a flat descending triangle. That's what I'm saying. Like I feel like there's no way to make some kind of move. So that's where I'm at. I think it's more likely to be tomorrow. Usually if you have a boring Monday, Tuesdays are kind of, I don't know, maybe that's just not the right thing to say, but I feel like when Mondays are kind of boring, Tuesdays tend to be kind of interesting. Vice versa. Sort of a reactive day, I guess, Tuesdays. I might agree with that more, to say they're kind of reactive. People used to say like turnaround Tuesday, but that's not really always the case. Sometimes I feel like Mondays just kind of continue Friday's action. If Tuesday is a good setup, it could be a pretty big day. So I don't know. Yeah, 750 is the target, at least for the initial move out. We'll see what happens after that. I wouldn't go so far as to call out inversion on everything, but we could see a pretty big secondary move after that. I think the challenge right now is timing. Timing has been very challenging and not unfortunately, I've not really been very accurate, at least a week out now. So it's a difficult one. Well, I'm in a place where I'm ready to start letting things kind of be, and I've already kind of made my moves, and I don't really want to continue to invest in like every little thing. But you know, I think getting in while things are cheap always a good idea, and if you can get in, you can get in. Yeah, I didn't get any of my MPW calls, so I'll wait, see if there's a pullback tomorrow. Just trying to kind of finish off that investment. I don't want to keep going with it. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with with the possibilities that I have with it, but I kind of want to, even still, I kind of want to buy in lower. It's trading enough volume-wise, I can get in lower, so I might invest in some more shares. Anywho, I guess that's all I have to say today. So I'm gonna go ahead and head out. What am I planning for MPW tomorrow? Oh, you're asking about my calls. I have January 17th $10 strikes. They're not very valuable right now. They're super cheap. They're like dancing between like 5 cents and 7 or 8 cents. Just depends. The bid and the ask are pretty spread. I think at lowest they were at like 4 cents, which is super cheap. I bought most of mine with an average of 10 cents, so I have a lot, but I kind of bought them all over the place. And I've been holding some of them for a long time. I held a lot of them through that last push up. I just didn't exit. I exited a few, but not a lot. What I mean is like way over here. They didn't really experience much change. Like this initial drop was their big spike. They went up to like 30 cents a piece. And then they stayed very flat here, and they ultimately didn't break low until this drop off of 482. This is when the value really plummeted. So we'll see. Do I think they'll ever get back to that value? Yeah, I think they'll get back up to 30 cents pretty quick. I mean, if this thing really does race up past $7, I'll just take whatever I get, but I think it'll be substantial. And I'm building a share position while it's really low, just to collect on the dividend. So yeah, so I'll probably pick up some more shares because it pays a 15% dividend, which is really high. All right. Well, you guys have a good one. I'll talk to you later.